Hello visitors, I am Daud Nasir at GetX Institute. Have you heard these terms? Risk threshold, risk tolerance, risk appetite, risk exposure, and risk resilience. What is meant by these terms? How do these differ from each other? Confusing, right? This is what we are going to discuss in this video. So let's start. First term, risk exposure. Defined as an aggregate measure of the potential impact of all risks at any given point in time, which means it can change over time. Typically, risk exposure is the product of probability and impact of risk. R equals P times I. It shows how exposed the project is to a risk or what is the potential impact of the risk. An example can be of a snowstorm that has, let's say, 40% chance of occurring, and if it occurs, will have 70% impact on the project. The risk exposure will be 40% times 70% or 0.28. Second term, risk threshold, defined as the level of risk exposure above which all risks are addressed and below which risks may be accepted. Risk threshold is usually a metric, otherwise it will be difficult to identify the level. For example, for a project, the risk threshold was 0.30. So the snowstorm risk exposure of 0.28 is below 0.30. It means snowstorm risk is acceptable and there is no need to plan for it. Third term is risk tolerance. The maximum level of an individual risk an organization is willing to accept. It is different from risk threshold. Risk tolerance, of course, will be different for different risks. For example, a risk of injury and a risk of project delay will not have the same tolerance. We will expect that comparatively, risk tolerance for injury will be very low. Now, fourth term is risk appetite, which is defined as the degree of uncertainty an organization or individual is willing to accept in anticipation of a reward. And it is usually taken as an aggregate concept. So it will be more kind of subjective in nature. Just like risk tolerance, risk appetite varies for individual risks. Here's an example. A sponsor is willing to take risk of cost overrun of up to $50,000, but unwilling to be late by 2 months. Fifth term, risk resilience. Another interesting concept. Appetite was how much risk someone is willing to take. Risk resilience is the ability to sustain or survive when exposed to that risk and get back to normal afterwards. So the sponsor may be willing to take a risk of cost overrun of 50,000, but can this sponsor survive it and get back to normal? This is risk resilience. So now I'm going to give you an example to explain these terms. A key team member is looking for another job and may leave the project in the middle. This risk has a probability of 40% and an impact, if that happens, of 80%. So the risk exposure is 0.32. The risk threshold for the project as per risk management plan is 0.28. This means that this risk needs to be planned for. Now, due to the urgent nature of the project and a hard deadline, the sponsor has a very low tolerance for this risk. The sponsor then advises the project manager to plan for this risk using about $15,000. So the sponsor has an appetite of about $15,000 cost to manage this risk. However, the project manager knows that the sponsor might be able to invest up to $30,000 to manage this risk. So the sponsor has a risk resilience higher than the risk appetite, which is good, of course. So I hope that you now have a better understanding of these risk management terms and you will never be confused again. Thank you for watching. For more videos, subscribe to our channel and do not forget to visit our website getxinstitute.com.